just ask you this way. Have guys been trying to do too much or trying to do two jobs? Is that something you all noticed in the film? A couple guys have mentioned doing your own job and not worrying about others.
I think in the second half against LSU that we were victim of that at times. Guys trying to make a play instead of playing within the scheme and doing what you're supposed to do. And there's a fine line there as a player. You don't want to take away their aggressiveness and their playmaking ability, but you also have to be cognizant of scheme-wise, especially in an assignment game, of what you've got.
What is maybe the biggest challenge with Taylor?
Well, he's fast. I mean, that's the first thing that jumps out at you. And he's got one-step quickness. When he takes off, it takes one step, and he's running full speed. You cannot stop your feet to tackle this guy. You've got to bring your feet. When you stop in the Pop Warner breakdown, you will not tackle him. You've got to bring your feet. And you've got to, in the zone reads, we've got to have two on him and sometimes three to make sure the first guy may miss. They may have a blocker on the second guy. You've got to have good overlap. We've got to have good eyes in zone to be able to leverage the ball. They do a nice job in the zone read. They really run it about 4 different ways based on the front, based on where they want to carry the ball, whether they want the back or him to carry it. So they can dictate that a little bit in the game, and we've got to be able to take some of that away from him.
We hear a lot about having a spy on a quarterback or one guy that stays with him. Is that not something you do, or is that more?
Yeah, I mean, there's things that you tweak schematically to have people on him, but to say that just one guy's going to stare at him the whole game is not necessarily what I think of when I think in terms of that. I think more than anything, it's just gap-wise and scheme-wise within the defense, how you're playing plays, you have people on him.
I mean, if you shut down Taylor, is it as simple as that, shutting down offense?
No, they're multiple enough. I mean, they do a nice job of still running the power game, but they've really transformed their offense. It's totally different from what we saw a year ago. I mean, it's just it's gone more to a zone read, gun run, option base series that I would liken it to Oregon possibly. I've seen on TV maybe a couple times would be similar to put the ball in the quarterback's hands. But Helu and Burkhead are outstanding backs, and they give you a lot of different things, and all of a sudden you pay attention to Martinez, and one of those guys pops out the other end. So, they do enough within their scheme to where you've got to be sound across the board in what you're doing. Well, they made a good decision. I mean, that's what I would say. It's good coaching. This thing that jumps out on film is he can really run. I mean, that's where, and really their offense is intact from last year and everybody back. And I think Zach Lee was hurt in the spring and did not go through spring, and that obviously one man's misfortune creates an opportunity for someone else. And, Bo being a defensive coach probably looked at this and said, that's going to give somebody problems. It probably gives them problems at practice and facing something like that. And that's where I think they've probably changed who they are a little bit offensively as far as scheme is concerned because of their players, which is good.
You got some athletes in your secondary. Would you be able to make protective if suddenly they got paid for them?
They're fine where they are.
Can you talk about just maybe some of the changes y'all made during the OU game or what your defense learned? I mean, first half they seemed to be unprepared, and by the second half.
Well, I think more than anything, in the first half, drives kept alive by penalties hurt us, obviously. And then the tempo, that's something we practiced and we had prepared for. Certainly didn't look like it, didn't feel like it either, okay? But if you repped it 100 times, you got to rep it 200. That's all I can look at. It goes back to coaching, and it's on me. But that's something we had prepared for. We had no issue with it year before. We faced other tempo teams. We've never had an issue with it other than one time against Oklahoma State out here my first year. And it's just disappointing that we did not seem prepared for that when I felt like we were going into the game. So obviously I got to do a better job. But it wasn't as much as adjustments. I mean, it was more of just settling down, not letting the tempo affect you play. And that's really it. I mean, that was really what you look at. And unfortunately, in the second half, we had some penalties on third down again, which hurt us. And you just can't keep drives alive against good offenses. And they're a good offensive football team. I mean, they're going to move the ball versus a lot of people. And you can't afford to keep them on the field when you have them off the field on 4 times. And that's really what hurt us in the game. And then the tempo early in the game, we really were striking well up front. We were playing blocks well up front. But it's unfortunate a couple snaps there kind of hurt you in the first half.
Is that one of the hardest things with a coach to teach your team is how to settle down early, especially when you're going on the road to practice?
No, I don't know that. I think that it's a great opportunity, to play a top 5 team. This is the challenge you want, in my opinion, as a competitor. You want to go play against a good offensive football team, which they have. So unfortunately, we had to wait a week. You'd have liked to go on and play the next day. But that's part of it. That's our game. So we're looking forward to playing in Lincoln.
Coach, I think Mack said that this Nebraska game at the end of the day with the first half of the season, so to speak. Do you look at the UCLA, Oklahoma, and this upcoming Nebraska game as a stretch, or is it just they're all mutually exclusive?
Mutually exclusive. I mean, every game. I mean, I think if you look across college football right now, no one week affects the next week on what happens to your football team. And I think it was pretty evident Saturday seeing some games as far as the scores, and just you wonder why that happened. I mean, and that's where, week to week, it's a weekly game. You gotta prepare well, you gotta practice well, you gotta coach well, you gotta play well on that Saturday. And on that Saturday, the best team wins that plays the best, makes the least amount of mistakes.
Do you ever see like patterns that develop, like maybe say over a 3-game stretch or 4-game stretch or something like that, or is there some sort of like level of tiredness? I mean, something just over time.
I think that there certainly is. When you play a stretch of games against really good teams, that certainly can take some more mental fatigue than it is physical fatigue. But again, coming off the off week, we ought to be fresh.
Coach Blake said that the off week was very physical. He was almost surprised by how physical it was. Was that a conscious effort on your part to?
We just need to keep improving. I mean, that's the way I look at it. We worked hard on tackling again, like we always do. That's nothing that's new. We do that all the time. We were able to get some extra days work on Nebraska, which is obviously a very different offense from what we faced thus far this season with what they do. So, by design a little bit to be more physical, by design to get a little bit more ahead on the next game, but also improve fundamentally with where we are and what we need to do to be successful.